Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about the Queen's Gambit, episode 3. It's called Doubled Pawns, so full spoilers for the episode as always. I have to say, I just by happenstance, not too long ago, one of the streamers I watch has been playing some chess, and I'm glad, because there's a lot of terms getting thrown around that I wouldn't have understood.
Oh really? Which ones?
Like castling was one that I know now, and I did know before the show, but if I hadn't been watching these chess streams and the recent history, I would never have known what a castling was. But regardless, I felt like this one had more of it than normal. There's a conversation where Beth has with the, as I was calling him, the bad boy of chess, because he wore a cowboy hat and a duster and had a knife in his jeans.
And also this actor, I'm blanking on his name. It's the first thing I've seen in him where he doesn't look about 12.
I'll be honest, I think even with the facial hair, he still looks 12.
I mean, no, he looks like 14 now.
He looks like a 12-year-old who's somehow grown facial hair. It's really quite weird.
I mean, and the casting people know, they always cast him like really young roles, like scarily young.
Yeah, he. I was bugging me what I knew him from. Turned out it was Godless, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember him in Godless now. But
he's in loads. He was in Game of Thrones for a couple of seasons. He's a really good episode of Doctor Who.
Do I? Godless I saw though, so that's where I knew him from. And but there's a conversation with him and Beth where he's like, oh, you shouldn't have castled, and he starts talking about things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually kind of following this conversation, and I feel like I wouldn't have been otherwise. But that's not to say that she doesn't start talking so fast about like the progression of a game at point that I think both of us probably lose the track of what she's talking about eventually.
See, the thing is, I can usually follow all the moves she's on about. I just can't understand the greater context.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like you know, whenever she talks about the technical terms, I can follow all that fine. But what it means and why it's such a good or bad thing, that's beyond me.
Yes. But hey, chess is a complex game. That's it. I've got a better handle than her mother does. Her foster mother does, anyway. So
I had a better handle at the age of like 7 than her foster mother does.
That's probably true. Yes. So this is mainly around her traveling and going to competitions. The first one being Cincinnati, which is the one that was set up at the end of the last episode. But there is a time jump mid-episode, so we get to US Open. Which isn't the next US Open. It skips a couple of years because her mother gets sick. Yeah,
I'm really intrigued as to how much time has passed, given the context of a couple of things in the episode.
Well, hold on. There was a title card for both the start of the episode and after the time jump, so I can tell you exactly how much time has passed.
I obviously I remember one of them was like 63, I think.
Yeah, it was 66 when it went to the US Open.
Okay.
So it's been about 2.5 years, I think, given the time of the year.
Okay, that's interesting, because I'm just trying to work out her age at this point. And
I know why you're trying to work out her age, because there's some romantic stuff coming up.
There is, and I was like, at this point, I'm like, okay, it's fine. She's probably 18 by now. But then there's like bits with her mother going, yeah, I bet you've never had a beer before.
Well, it's the US. You have to be 21.
No, I know, but even then, like, let's be honest. I'm sure a lot of 18-year-olds drink a beer, but at that point.
Oh no, they do, but which is why I'm saying it's almost that part's almost irrelevant. I don't think that's getting to do with their age. I mean, well, it does have to do with their age, but I don't think it has anything to do with the legal age. I mean, I think it's just to do with the age that she is. Like, I buy that enough teenagers get to 17 and maybe haven't started drinking yet. A lot do, obviously, but I buy that some don't, especially ones that are in chess tournaments that travel with their mother constantly. You know, she's not exactly the most social girl at the high school. So, yeah, like even if she is technically of age for this flirtatious stuff that happens in this episode, this guy met her when she was 15, a couple of years prior. It's still kind of creepy.
It is. They put in some explicit dialogue to make it sound better. Like they say, oh, he makes comment of that she looks good now. He never said, like she's grown up to look good.
Yeah, but he does also say the phrase "you've grown up," Harmon. Which, I'll be honest, if you say to someone "you've grown up" and you're entering a flirtatious exchange with them, maybe second guess what you're doing a little bit. If you can say that to, if you're old enough to say, "Oh, you've grown up," as in you knew them when they were not grown up.
Yeah.
Unless you're both the same age, I guess, in which case you've just not seen each other since you were both 13, and you're like, oh, hey, you grew up, and then it's not that weird, because it's
there are contextual reasons why it can be okay.
Yes. So, but yeah, that was weirding me out. Because I remember you saying last episode he's not done anything wrong yet. I would say that he's definitely bordering on wrong on this episode.
Bordering on, yeah.
Bordering. Faux pas. There's...
Yeah. Yeah, it's murky, isn't it?
It's murky. And then there's a weird third wheel element to it as well, which did not see coming,
nope.
I have to admit. Where he might be in a gay relationship with a man.
Yeah, he tries to explain it away at the end, but we don't get to hear any of that.
I mean, he's clearly attracted to her too, so I mean, clearly he's bisexual or whatever, but yeah, this was definitely a wrench thrown in. And the other guy seems quite happy to leave them in the room together, so it makes me think that it's more of an open thing they've got going.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have jumped to there's a relationship between that. I was like, oh, this is just like who he's rooming with while he's traveling. But it was the way it played with like how she reacted to it and the way that he felt awkward about her reaction that really told me, oh no, there's something sexual.
I think it's
going on
his
here.
reaction that gets it, because her reacting like that, her making that assumption, I think would be fine because she would, regardless of what the truth was. But it's him being reacting to that is where it's a bit more telling, I think.
Yeah, I will say there's a phenomenal winner. There's a lot of good direction in the episode again, but there's a phenomenal winner, and she's walking into the hotel where the tournament's been played in the second half in Vegas. And the winner itself is good, but what really stuck out to me is the 5.1 mix, because there's like some swing music or like jazz music playing as she's walking in. And the way it was bouncing around the different speakers with whatever instruments were coming in, it seemed like the horn or whatever or the trumpet was bouncing back and forth between the two rear speakers. It was really noticeable and had a lot of energy to it because it was really feeling like it was surrounding me. More than just it's because often it'll just be it makes you feel like it's surrounded you, just in a
general ambience.
Wave. Yeah. This actually felt like there was like another musician jumping in to the back left and doing a little bit, and then another one jumping in from the right and doing a little motif. And it was really overly mixed, and not in a bad way. This is not a complaint. If anything, I think movies and TV underuse the sound.
I think
mix.
It's one of those things where it's distracting because you notice it, so that could be a critique. But really, it's only distracting because it's not done often enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's okay in the context of the scene, because the context of the scene is her basking in the atmosphere of where she's walking into. So I think in that context, it's allowed to be distracting, because the whole point is look at how mesmerizing this is, and I think the sound is part of that. It's it's the sound of Vegas, it's the sound of the hitting the happening. So all of that kind of creates a feel that I think it would be more distracting in like an emotional scene if all of a sudden it felt like there was directional things happening in the music. I'm
just
like, no,
suddenly hear a trumpet coming up from one corner.
I would imagine it'd be more of a subdued violin and an emotional scene, but yes. So there's. It was good though. I felt the mix. But there's, I think the story of this episode, other than of course her growing up a little bit, we talked the last episode about her foster mother is almost influencing and enabling the worst parts of her, and the fact that she seems to be turning her daughter into an alcoholic. She has certainly would go along with that.
Absolutely no willpower for parental instincts.
No.
I mean, I'll give her credit on like one particular conversation at the end. I think she's quite good in that one. But the bit where she's like, have a beer. You're old enough. You can try one, and she just completely necks it. And then
the first time's on the plane with she's got like a martini or something, and she's just like, here, have a sip.
It's Christmas Day, right?
And that's a normal thing for parents to do with their kids once they're I don't know, in their teens. It's like, hey, have a wee sip.
Or alternatively, when they're about 5 and it's hilarious to see the reaction. That's a really common thing as well.
I came from a civilized family, so I don't want to comment on that. But it's just a sip and it's whatever. But yeah, there's the moment where she says, "Go on, you can have the rest of this beer," and she downs it in one swig, very much suggesting this is not the first time she has tasted a beer. She's just like, gulp, 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 it's gone.
Yeah,
I want another. She basically does the Thor thing where he throws down the cup,
and that's the bit where the parental control goes, because like, try this beer, have the rest of this one. That's fine. She's like, I want another one. She's like, I don't know, you really shouldn't. This isn't the best. She's like, I'm having another one. It's like, fine, just bring me one as well.
Yes. So that's a problem. I think also the fact that Beth is essentially the one making all the money is also maybe having a weird power dynamic here.
Yeah, like there are moments where obviously it feels again manipulative. Like she's just in this for the money. Like she's constantly asking about the next tournament that has a better prize fund. But
yeah, when they go to lunch with the two guys from the first tournament she went to, and because they run in to eat them, the two twins.
Yeah.
And they have lunch with them, and all she's asking about is, is there more money at this tournament? What about this next tournament? Has that got big winnings?
Right. But then there are points where I think it's after the first winnings in this one, where she's like, well, as I was like acting as an agent, can I maybe get 10%? And it doesn't feel like sleazy. It feels like she really doesn't know how else to pay the rent, and she doesn't want to ask her to just give her all the money. But and she's
honestly
genuine about it.
It's not unreasonable.
Like, here's 15%. I think she says.
Honestly, it's not even that unreasonable. She's taking her around the country. She's doing all the scheduling and arranging things. I mean, she's also lying. And this is the thing. I kept chuckling because the montage where they're going to different competitions around the country, and it keeps like going back to her phoning the school and like making up excuses why she's sick and she can't go in. And I'm like, surely eventually, by the time we get to the article in Life magazine, someone from the school is eventually going to catch on that Beth is a chess whiz who's been going around the country winning all these tournaments.
I'm assuming they were pretty lax back then in that, what are you going to do once it got to that point?
I just, I figure at some point someone's going to notice. And it leads to bullies, maybe a bit of a strong word in this case, just kind of high school bitch, I guess.
Yeah.
Eventually invites her to like a gathering, and it's almost like they feel compelled to because now she's really popular.
Yeah, but it's not like a militia. They're not inviting her there just to be cruel. Like it's not that.
No, it's not that. It's not quite friendship either. It's kind of a weird. They want to grill her basically and find out about everything that she's going through.
I suspect part of it's more she's the most popular person in the school, so she needs to belong to their group so that their group has the most status.
I did get a sort of sinister laugh out of this though. That essentially the first thing that really drives her to drink, because this is before the beer stuff, but this is after the martini, so this is kind of her first time properly drinking, is she gets uncomfortable when they all start singing along to some dumb song. And this was just kind of funny because this is what teenagers did in the 60s. They didn't have YouTube to like share memes and stuff with, so they all just sang the songs that come on TV.
Pretty not the part of watching on TV, but still relatable to me. Even at my age, where just the song comes on and everyone starts singing. That's pretty normal still.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying. It's more the context. It's more the type of song. It's more the fact that it's all these teen girls, like they're all sitting around a TV set. I don't imagine that teenagers today all quite catch a thing that's playing on TV in this way, and I don't even think they did when I was at that age.
Okay, maybe the TV specific part, but in this context, they're not there watching the TV. It's background. It's on a music channel. It's just background music while they're talking, and then I think one of them's like, "Oh, I like this song. Turn it up," and it kind of just goes from there.
Connor, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that it was not on a music channel in 1963.
Probably not. There was a music show for an hour. Probably. Yes. I'm aware, but.
There was maybe 3 channels. I'm pretty sure one of them wasn't MTV.
I'm aware. There was... I don't know what America had. I don't know, they probably didn't have Top of the Pops. But...
No, they didn't have Top of the Pops.
No, exactly. That's my point. Just assuming that was not there.
I think you're misunderstanding the point I was trying to make here. Was just that it was kind of like a window into a 60s version of something I do very much understand. I wasn't saying that all of this is completely alien and gone.
With you.
But anyway, I got a dark chuckle out of this because just the idea that she's driven to drink because she's stuck with all these normal teenage girls all singing along to some dumb song. She's like, I need to go to the bathroom. She sees the booze and she's like, I'm having some of this. This is the only way I'm getting through this.
It's like, that looks better than that. And it's not even that she gets through this. She takes it and leaves.
She does, yeah. She goes home and she has some with her tranquilizers. So all of the addictions are starting to on.
That's going to be very healthy, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, even the woman interviewing her for Life kind of prods at the chess being like a coping mechanism, and even tries to say that, compare it to genius and madness and all these things, and seeing meaning in stuff that has no real meaning, and how she's become attached to it. And I think the fact that this episode even started with a flashback to her watching her mother swim away and almost being worried for a second that her mother was leaving her, and it turned out not to be the case. She was just swimming out to the little raft and that was fine. Yeah. But But she talks about how on the chessboard she has complete control. And as we see in this episode, by the end, the idea that she might not have complete control in a game is like horrifying to her. Like she stresses out over it. She's beating herself up. She can't handle the fact that she was not in complete and 100% control, and she blames herself, and that's kind of the emotional core of this episode.
Yeah.
And I think that translates to everything else in life as well. You know, the idea that, you know, she is starting to deal with the idea of relationships with boys and sex and stuff like that. That's not something she can completely control on her own.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of these points where I think the mother is, again, such a surprisingly complex character. In that, you know, she's like, you know, you don't have to, you know, win every game. You don't have to control every moment. You know, it's okay to, you know, lose sometimes. Things like that. And it feels like a very healthy, natural thing that she needs to learn at some point. And, you know, I've had, you know, completely on the foster mother side in this scene. So that's what I say. I think, you know, it's really interesting. Yes, in this scene. Yeah. I did specify that. That's why she's such a complex character, because there are points where I'm like, this is terrible parenting. And then there are points like this where I'm like, no, this is exactly what she should be saying.
Yeah, and all she really does otherwise is just get drunk and watch TV. Like that's basically her.
Yeah,
and I guess occasionally go for dinner. Because they have several scenes of her sitting at a table.
Yeah,
but like that's basically it. So she's just living the high life that she's getting from her daughter's fortune.
Pretty much.
And I say I don't mean literal fortune. It's not a fortune yet. She's winning enough that they can have a decent enough lifestyle, but she's not rich
right.
by any means.
And I think it's at this point where I realised I appreciate that when they adopted her, you know, she didn't know that she was a chess prodigy or anything. It's not like she picked her out, so, like, you know, in a malicious way. It's like, oh, I could use this. There was like a genuine, real start to this relationship, and I think that's pretty important.
Yeah. So when we go forward to... Actually, one thing we should mention is that she's not very happy that the Life magazine article tends to just talk about the fact that she's a girl, and that's kind of the impressive part. Hey, a girl's doing all this. This is a girl who's winning chess. This is a girl who's played all these old men. And she's very miffed at that. We jump forward to the Vegas stuff. Obviously, we have the big scene with Towns, the older man who obviously she was flirtatious with before. Wants to do an article, and he's like, you know, I've got a camera up in my room. Bit of a red flag immediately.
I mean, from a traveling journalist, maybe it's not.
Come to my room for an interview. We'll play chess. Yes, chess. Well, because all I could think was one of the things that the girls sort of teased her with is like, do you swap rooks with anyone? And obviously they mean it as an innuendo, and Beth doesn't get it. But when he says, you want to go up to my room and play chess, I'm like, Beth, remember the girls. Remember. Now, admittedly, she is attracted to him. She's clearly into him in some capacity. I think
at this point, she understands what's happening here.
I think she's at least understanding the possibility of where this might be going.
Yeah,
and is making the choice here. Yeah,
she's not oblivious to this and going up thinking, "Oh, I'm going to have a nice little interview." She's there going, "Oh, something might happen here." She's very aware of that going in.
Yeah, and she's at that age where she's starting to make that choices.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's only weird because in your young, and he's still older. Like, I mean, and I think she is still 17, which is still.
Is she 17?
I think she's 17. I'm going out on a limb here, just based on a few factors. I mean, maybe she has just turned 18. I could be wrong, but even if she has just turned 18, he's still like 30 or something. You know, it's a little bit of a weird relationship.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that.
So, but you know, she's enamored with this older guy. They have this awkward moment where the other guy walks in, and it's notable that that's what she's thinking about when she's down in that beer. Like, that's what she's kind of cooling down. She's kind of trying to like take back control. And it's almost like the booze is tricking her into thinking she has control over her feelings, which I mean, it's kind of a typical thing. People drink to hide their feelings and not have to feel them. It's not exactly a new concept, but
alcoholism 101, folks.
It ties into everything else she's going through with the chess. So I do think it's a bit funny. So because we introduced the bad boy of chess early on, right? Because she runs into him at one of the early tournaments.
It's Cincinnati. It's the first one.
Yeah, and he's not playing. He's just kind of showing off. And I immediately started laughing at this guy because he's got the hat on, the duster. He's got the knife in his belt, and I'm like, do these people exist in chess? Like these guys who think they're cool? I suppose we had the hair comb guy last episode, so I suppose I shouldn't be surprised.
I 100% believe they exist in chess.
The idea of him walking in and going, all right, let's play some chess, darling, and sitting down and like, even when he sits down, because they have the final game, because obviously they both get to the finals, and when he sits down, he actually sort of like brushes his duster, but he doesn't take it off. He doesn't take his duster off. He brushes it past so he can sit down.
I mean, if I'm going to wear a duster, I'd be doing the same.
He's practically wearing the same outfit he was wearing in Godless. It's like he didn't bother changing. The actor just
He's like, I kind of like that. Let's keep that going.
He sits down. Do you know what? I almost thought they were going to show us the whole game in one shot. Because they kept it in this 2-shot for the start of it, and you could follow the moves as they were making them once they started moving. And I was kind of thinking, like, do you know what? This would be a really ballsy thing if they'd made the actors memorize the whole game, so they'd have to sit and do it in one take.
I think there is probably one of those in the show.
Yeah, that's coming.
I do. I think they're saving it.
Okay. And when I say, and not like one that ends quickly, where she like does a trick and that's it, it's over. I mean something that's actually like a long, like a, for the perspective of watching it on TV, a long game, like a 5-minute non-stop.
Yeah. Obviously, the timers, theoretically, the games are up to hours, right? But
yes,
we've established she's a quick player. She makes moves pretty impulsively, quite fast. It is back and forth every time we'd see.
Which actually, I did get a good chuckle when she goes up to play her first opponent in the first tournament in Cincinnati, and she goes up and says, "Hi, I'm Beth Harmon," and the guy just goes, "Ah, shit,"
and then it just cuts to her handing in the form straight after. That was funny.
I got a chuckle.
Yeah. I actually, while we're on the final game, I really like that effect that they had at the start, where he'd made a comment and he'd point out a weakness in an early game, and he kind of references her go-to opening move that we've seen, and she second guesses herself and starts thinking through all the possibilities, and we get like chess vision of her super speed running through all the possibilities of what these first few moves would be, and what he'd do back, and that was a really interesting effect.
It's funny, obviously. I mean, the lesson here is for the whole show, one may argue, if I'm going to guess this early on, is that it's just that simple idea that she has to learn she can't control everything, and therefore, because she says early on when she's replaying her games in front of her mum, and she says, "Why are you doing that?" And she's like, "I'm looking for weaknesses." And did you find any? It's like, no, there's none. I don't know if that's entirely true, and I think maybe the lesson is that there's always going to be some sort of weakness somewhere, and it can always be exploited. You just have to be able to prepare with it and deal with it. Be able
to adapt, I think, is the key part. Yeah.
But the idea, because I was almost going to suggest that he almost played her, because maybe part of playing chess is playing your opponent, and because you often hear, even from her perspective, maybe he's going to notice what I'm doing and play against it. You're kind of almost banking on someone not seeing a move coming or not seeing something.
Oh, absolutely.
So the idea that part of playing someone in chess is kind of him putting that seed of doubt in her head is maybe part of the strategy. But at the same time, he's not lying about something. What he points out is true, and that's why it bothers her.
Yeah,
it is a real thing.
It's a little bit mind gamey, and I do think that's a big part of chess. I mean, at least in this show, that was a big part of. We spoke about last episode with trying to force them, or try and bluff their way into a draw and things like that. So there are definitely mind games that are a part of this.
I like the flashback to the "Now you resign."
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
I like that moment when she makes the choice to shake his hand. Yeah, because she's lost.
And I do think, that's probably. But I like what it's doing with it. It is clearly the point, and like say, learning to adapt, overcoming these things. And yes, he's telling the truth, but it's definitely a mind game at the same time. I like the layers of it.
Yeah. Obviously, I expect they'll play again. One of the things she does in this episode is she starts taking night classes to learn Russian, because the best players are from Russia, so she's eventually going to have to test her might.
Yeah,
over there.
It's really interesting that she's not doing any school, but she is doing night classes for to learn Russian.
Yeah. So it's. I think going forward, it's interesting the way she's kind of with her mother towards the end, where she makes a catty little comment. Her mother says, "Well, trust me, I know how it feels to lose," and Beth just goes, "Yeah, I bet you do." And it's this really sort of snipey little shitty comment, and she's like, "Well, now you do too." And when they ride off, the final shot is them leaving in the limo, or limo, which be a taxi. But the shot made me think of a limo because it was,
it's just where the camera was, yeah.
Yeah. But, she leans over and takes her mother's hand, and it's right after Towns has ran out and tried to talk to her, and she just kind of doesn't want to have the conversation.
Yeah, but it's clear, cause obviously this is the next day at this point. It's clearly been frosty all night. This isn't just a 5-minute thing. This is a lingering moment for them both.
Yeah, and I think even just the idea that not that it even remotely compares to the marriage or anything like that, but the idea that she's just had this encounter with a guy and it's made her feel shitty, so she's sort of almost arm in arms with her mother, who's her existence has been completely shaken up by the fact that her husband ran off.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been a few years now, admittedly, but that's the sort of thing. You've been married for several years. You've lost a child together. That's still a big part of her existence, even if it has been a few years.
Yeah, I mean,
so
for however long she was married, her assumption that the rest of her life was she's the housewife now. That was it. And I don't think that she, I don't think that was a bad thing for her. Like, also, I think that was she was quite happy and content in that. Like, that was what she expected from life, and that was that. And then this has completely upended it. That's a big thing to change your entire life plan, basically.
Yeah. And she's clearly an alcoholic, so it's not like she's adjusted well. I mean, clearly the drinking was already started, and
she even says
perhaps that was
she's flirted with it her whole life.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it got a lot worse when the marriage was clearly getting shaky, and it probably got worse after the loss of the child as well, admittedly. Yeah. But from what we've seen, it does feel so. I just the idea of turning to coping mechanisms and stuff like that, obviously a big theme of the show. But yeah, and that was a good episode. Direction was really good, I thought, in this one particularly. There was a lot of good stuff earlier with the flashback, with the really shaky handheld camera, the way it was kind of like dancing around them as we're hugging in the flashback. Like I say, the wonder, she's walking out and feeling the wonder of the big Vegas hotel. I did get a chuckle that even the beds had like dice themed kind of stylings, like the wood was carved into like dice and stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing for the lobby to have big giant dice, but I'm like, okay, you're Vegas, I get it. You're the gambling capital of the world. Calm down, right?
Do you think it's only such a reputation because of the way gambling is in the rest of the US that it's so restrictive?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. Joe, I always, because there's the second gambling capital in the US, Atlantic City, right? I always forget where that is, and I'm always surprised when I remember it's in New Jersey. I'm like, oh, it's in New Jersey. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, New Jersey.
It's one of those weird cultural things that is so surprising to me, that of all the freedoms that America has, gambling is the line where it's like, no, only in these handful of places.
I tell you what, I mean, I never gamble, but I will take the freedom to gamble with no guns. Thank you very much.
It's so weird. Like in the UK, we get literally gambling site on my phone. I have an app and I can bet live on the sports mid game and no problem. But America, oh no, that's a big no.
There's a couple of slot machines in like every pub in the country. It's just normal.
That's just standard culture.
Yeah. So it's not a special thing to go and do. Admittedly, you'd have to go to a specialized casino to get like things like roulette and shit like that.
Sure, but just betting on sports, whatever, like that, is a pretty normal everyday thing for lots of people.
And they tax the shit out of it, so the government's quite happy with it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. But hey, there you go. So that's episode 3.
It is, yes.
The Queen's Gambit. You can let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. You can support us for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv and get some bonuses and help keep all the content coming. And I'll just throw in a reminder here as well that you'll have maybe 2 days left to submit your top TV shows of all time. You can find the link on the community tab on YouTube or on the Twitter. I've retweeted it out over and over the last couple of weeks as it's been getting closer to the deadline.
And I know we've had some questions. Limited series such as this are eligible.
Yes, limited series are eligible, for sure. If it get cancelled after 1 season, it's eligible. Non-scripted shows are technically eligible. Admittedly, I don't think a lot of them have had a lot of points, but if you really feel like the Great British Bake Off, if I can say it properly, is something you really want to give some points to, you're more than willing to do that.
I'm waiting for the one Brit to submit all the panel shows.
Well, a bit of trivia. The one vote for the Great British Bake Off that we've had so far was not from a British person.
That actually doesn't surprise me at all. It's very popular thanks to Netflix.
I guess. I don't know. That's weird. But knock yourselves out. To each their own. This has been the Queen's Gambit. We have been almost cancelled. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?